What is going on, everybody? Welcome to episode number 8 of Bear Side of the Mat. My name is John Bear, alongside my co-host, that Matt85. How you doing today, Matt?
Good. Been a good day, and just been anticipating our broadcast here, especially because for the first time in a while, we're not just doing a pay-per-view review.
Yeah, it seems like we do a lot of reviews on our show, but yeah, today we got a couple topics to talk about. Unfortunately, we do have to talk about a really serious subject. We'd be kind of remiss if we didn't at least report on this. Actually, last Thursday. Yeah, what's going on, Corey? How you doing, man? Uh, last Thursday, whenever we were going live, we were talking about backlash, and I don't know if you do the same thing, Matt, but usually whenever we're doing a podcast, I kind of like turn everything off. Like everything else in the outside world is just kind of, unless like someone calls me or something like that. Everything to me, everything just kind of shuts off because we're focused on this. But I was gonna say, I don't know if you are the same way or not,
That is
but
true. I keep just our notes for what we're going over up. I have your stream so I can check out what the graphics are, and I have my video just to make sure I look okay. But besides that, and my wife running around the background and my dog, I'm focused on the podcast.
yeah. But during the show last week, we did our show on Thursday, which is a little bit different. But during our show on Thursday, a lot of like breaking news came out. A lot of, if you see this hashtag that we have on the screen here for this graphic, there's a lot more than just Matt Riddle, Jordan Devlin, and Jack Gallagher that were named, but there was a lot of different kind of allegations towards the majority is going to be male wrestlers, although there is a couple female uh, members of the wrestling industry who are involved in this. And from last Thursday until now, this has been really just been kind of a never-ending spree of just people speaking out about their experiences and about how some people in the wrestling industry have done some really horrible things. And really, what we have to go off of is all of these people speaking out, their allegations, and then the responses that some of the people that have responded to this really have. So we don't have really the liberty to say that we believe that this person is truthful or stuff like that. So that's not what we're here to do. We're simply here to report on things. But pretty crazy time, though. What do you say?
Yeah, I didn't. It kind of caught me by surprise. Every once in a while, something hits the news. I didn't expect it to kind of roll into a lot of stories. In a lot of ways, I'm not surprised. I say that a lot. I don't get caught surprised very often because I'm very imaginative. But I mean, the big thing that hits me is that you get so many stories, not necessarily of sexual harassment or sexual um, uh,
Assault.
yeah, assault. That's the word I was looking for. But you get a lot of stories of even just plain assault. uh, Usually, they're told as fun stories or funny stories from older wrestlers about how it was back in the day and stuff. But um, yeah, just I mean, taking that and furthering it on, especially now that there's a lot more women and they're taken a lot more seriously. It honestly isn't too surprising that a lot of it's coming out, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's still, like this is just the tip of the iceberg. If there's another 80% of things that are either not being said or are still yet to come.
Yeah, that's a crazy part about this. And also, another thing to say here is for all the people that are speaking out, um, I think we both recognize that it is incredibly difficult to do so, um, especially in such an industry where if God forbid, if you piss off the wrong person. We've heard it in WWE before, and it's not even just like an allegations type of thing like this, but we've heard it from certain people, like if you don't do one thing right, or if you do something in front of Vince McMahon, then he's going to have a bad opinion about you, and the push that you were going to get, we feel like pushing this other guy instead. And something, there's always something so petty that happens in the wrestling industry that causes people to maybe like lose their positions and stuff like that. And so you add into the fact that whenever you do see some of these people speaking out, and before all this have even happened, other people had spoken out about other things in other industries and things like that, and you'll see them get responses like, "Well, do you have any proof or anything?" And it's just like, dude, that's one of the reasons why people aren't speaking out, is because people are just being jerks about it to them. And just, I'm not saying you have to believe every single thing you hear, but I mean,
Yeah, I mean, if like if you're completely unrelated to any of the people or the happenings or the situations, you really don't need to step up in defense of somebody, or just to troll somebody. Or even on the other side, if somebody's being blamed, you don't need to go after them either. If you're completely unrelated, really take the best from it, discuss it with people that you know, um, and kind of wait and see what happens.
yeah,
Because, like you said, yelling for proof, it is important. Because on the flip side of something horrible happening to you, if it didn't, and you are just trying to ruin somebody's career, that's also really bad. But a lot of times there isn't proof. All you can do is go by what you have to say, uh, and you want to get that story out there to try and help save somebody else from going through the same thing. And again, that ends up coming out to being between the people that are involved. Again, as a bystander going in and trying to jump on somebody, there's just no point to it, really.
yeah, I agree with that. So for us here, again, we're not here to make any judgments on whether or not we think that any of these things happened. But the biggest thing to glean from this not only is like a big thank you to so many of the people who did speak out. And I don't know who exactly and where exactly it started, but in my opinion, from what it sounds like, there's like probably one person did it, and then it probably got some kind of recognition on social media, most likely Twitter, and then everybody else felt like they were brave enough to come out because somebody else did. And it's great that we ended up, to to clarify this. It's great that we're seeing so many people speak out. It's not great because all these things happen to these people, and that's really terrible. But so it's a double edged sword in that sense.
Yeah, I do want to say when you said that it's hard to come up with stuff like that, it's very true. Not just because, like you said, even when you're at the level of WWE, it could drop your career immediately. I really don't remember a time where somebody came out with something and Vince said, "Okay, let's take that and run with it and give you a push." Even
Well,
if the person, even if the person you're coming out against uh, ends up having, getting punished, the person that comes out usually ends up getting punished too. Usually,
yeah,
and that's just in WWE. If you haven't even made it that far yet, there's a lot of cases where people are like, she's causing too much trouble. I don't want to hire her for our company. Uh, and then you don't even get off the ground in that case.
yeah,
But even besides that, it really is hard for a lot of people that are on Twitter with 0 followers, nobody listening to what they say, and they're spamming hate or whatever they're spamming at other people. you don't really understand, and I'm not trying to put myself in that category with my 3 followers, but you don't really understand what it is to have hundreds, tens, hundreds, thousands of people you know, people you don't know, all coming after you because you said something, whether it's true or not. You really don't know what that's like. That is hard. Myself, I've kind of gone silent on anything that's any what serious for the same reason. I have my views. A lot of times they're different than a lot of people's views, and a lot of times when I've put them up, even my friends will give me a hard time, not necessarily in a friendly way, um, let alone strangers. And I've kind of gotten to the point to where I just don't want to deal with it, and I don't need to. And if on that small of a scale for me that I'm having a hard time, then I can't even imagine for people that have thousands of people following them, or even people that aren't following them, opening it up to even more people to just jump in and throw hate at you. It's hard to deal with.
Yeah, you get people like Nyla Rose, who, I mean, thankfully, I think a lot of hate kind of gets thrown out, but it's kind of a similar situation to where Nyla Rose will just tweet something, just be like, hey, I'm ready for AEW Dynamite, and then somebody will come out and say that, oh, you're a man, whenever she's a transgender woman, and it's just like, dude, what the hell, man? Like, why would you even say that? You know, and they deal with that a lot.
Yeah, and I hate hearing the excuse too. You make so much money, you need to deal with it.
Yeah,
Money has literally nothing to do with it.
money.
And if you think money makes you happy, then you don't have money,
Yeah, money.
and you're
Money.
probably not happy.
Money can't buy you happiness, right?
It can't.
So to wrap this up, I did make a list, or at least I found a list online of not just wrestlers, but people in the industry that have been accused. If you guys do, we're not going to go into detail on the situation. There is a couple, at least one statement that I thought was very interesting from All Elite Wrestling. We'll get into that here, but this is a bit of a longer list, so bear with me for just a second, guys. But the list of wrestlers or people in the wrestling industry that were accused of some kind of abuse, and these allegations have come out within the last week or so. Jim Cornette, Matt Riddle, Velveteen Dream. Velveteen Dream, I believe, came from Pryor, where he had a bit of an online something going on, but I think that was kind of proven to be false, but I'm not sure yet. Darby Allin, Mike Quackenbush, Marty Skrull, Icarus. Some of these people I really have never heard of, but it's good to put out there.
Yeah.
The Knight family. The Knight family is the family of Paige, and it sounds like a lot of allegations are going towards her mother, Soraya Knight. I believe I'm pronouncing that right. I am not sure. Rich Catalado. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right. David Starr. I want to say actually the accusations against David Starr is really what kind of I want to say kind of got the ball rolling on this. Dave Christ, Martin Zaki, Sammy Guevara, Rob Feinstein. Rob Feinstein. There's actually video of him online being caught in a underage sting, which is kind of freaky. Will Ospreay, Chino, Bafa, Reyes, Dan Moff, Mark Haggerty, Kirk White, Aaron Epic, Russell Payne, Chasen Rance, Jimmy Havoc, Trent Seven, Mark Paz Perry, Wolfgang, and Dave Lagana. I'm sure that I've missed a couple in there, but that was the main list that I found off of a wrestling news site. There's a couple out there that haven't been named but have been really like attached to something. I believe Jake Hager is one of the names, but I don't know if that's necessarily been proven yet. But yeah, that's a lot of people. Oh,
Going along with that too, I was kind of alluding to it before. I had read a story too of I guess I mean you could call it sexual harassment too, between two men, and it wasn't even necessarily as far as I understand it, homosexual. It was just kind of like a power struggle. I don't know if you read the story about Congo Kong.
Yeah, I did hear about that.
Yeah, and I mean, even if it's not sexual in nature, there's that goes back to what I was saying. Lots and lots and lots of stories of ribs and other just not even just pranks, but almost torture, especially for new people in the locker room. But I mean, sometimes you even get just two veterans that don't like each other, and the kind of the stuff that's allowed in the locker room, or behind the scenes at parties and stuff like that is, I mean, really, 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 frankly, unacceptable. And the only reason why it is acceptable is because it's been around for so long, and it's at least especially for such a long time, such a masculine sport to where you're supposed to deal with stuff, and it's supposed to be okay to deal stuff like that out. And it's been changing a lot, a lot, a lot. Apparently, I was listening to Jericho's podcast. He was talking to a longtime referee for WWE, and he had his own kind of stories about how things have changed. A lot of his worst stories were from 25 years ago, 30 years ago. Not as much lately, but some of that is still there. But if this opens it up, not just to men on women, but to everybody and how they treat each other in the locker room, to be more professional, to be more like an actual job and less of just like a, I got this. I don't know if this is entirely correct, but I got kind of the whenever I watch stuff about older wrestling, not just WWE, but especially at the time, the different regional wrestling, it seemed more like a freak show. Like you're getting this Andre the Giant, gigantic dude, and you're mostly just showing him off for a crowd. But how you're showing him off is with wrestling power moves and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And a lot of ways, that seems like how they're being treated. And I guess I kind of say that after having watched The Greatest Showman, where there's some honor in it. He's taking these people and giving them a job, but then there's also the treating them like freaks
Yeah.
and not regular people. So then, because I mean, wrestling shouldn't be such a different industry that kind of thing is allowed, but just because it has been for so long, nobody's really said much about it. So if this is a turning point to make it a better place, I think you could see, uh, people with a better mental health in the industry, more people wanting to go into the industry, more talent, better storylines. It just in general should improve the product and improve the lives of the people that you like watching on TV.
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to be a big turning point, I think, in the wrestling industry once again. We've probably thought for so long that there probably hasn't been all that much going on, and unfortunately, there has been. Because I mean, a lot of the stories that we hear stories from old wrestlers, and at first, whenever you hear them, you think like some of the stories they sound so funny, but then you start to listen to it again, it's just like, okay, that's messed up. That's like I felt guilty for laughing, and
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
and those stories have been until recently a little bit more few and far between. There's been some funny road stories about uh, you hear some fun stuff in my opinion, one of my favorite table for three episodes was Braun Strowman, Alexa Bliss, and Ember Moon, and they're telling stories about how Braun Strowman is singing karaoke and singing Frozen songs. So, you know what? The more that we can have people doing that kind of stuff on the road instead of all the other stuff that we're hearing about, the better off I think the wrestling industry will be.
Yeah, I've heard, like you said, some good stories, and I think the industry is changing naturally, but I think this is another big step. I know I heard a story from who was it again? Um, what's his name from the Dutch wrestler?
Dutch wrestler.
Black.
Oh, Aleister Black. Okay.
Alistair Black. That's it. Yes.
I don't know
He
why I
said
was
that
thinking Dexter Loomis, but
He was saying that he was trying to be he was like his first call up trying to do the cool thing you do as a rookie without even being told you're taking care of the people that have been there longer. You're taking care of their gear. You're cleaning up after them and cleaning up the locker room because you're new and because you want to get some respect. And John Cena sat him down and said, "No, man, you don't need to do that. As soon as you step in this locker room, you're one of us." So I feel like some of the newer wrestlers, not necessarily Aleister Black, but some of the locker room leaders like John Cena, Roman Reigns, are probably trying to instill that culture. And it probably takes that kind of culture to have other people to be able to step up and speak out because they feel like they at least have a few people behind them.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good story. I hadn't heard that. Far away from the story of the Miz eating his fried chicken over Chris Benoit's gym bag and Chris Benoit going crazy on him. Apparently,
That's not somebody you want to mess with, apparently.
well, probably not.
In hindsight.
So I do have in regards to WWE and All Elite Wrestling and also Impact Wrestling. With Impact Wrestling, apparently Joey Ryan, Jake Christ, and Michael Elgin have been taken off TV. I believe Elgin was suspended. I'm not sure about Christ, and I think Joey Ryan. I don't think for Joey Ryan, there's been a lot of stories about him recently, mainly in the past couple days. I don't think he's going to find another job in the United States again because of all this. For WWE released Gentleman Jack Gallagher from his contract, and they didn't even give him a best of luck in your future endeavors. It was, Gallagher's been released of his contract, so that was pretty serious. I forget what they did with Jordan Devlin. I think they said that they were investigating the situation, but he has been off television for a while because of the pandemic, and he is from the UK, or he's actually Irish, I believe, isn't he?
Yeah, he's Irish,
Yeah.
but that's right. Yeah, he's Irish. He's not part of the UK.
But
He's part of our NXT UK.
right. One of the reasons why that they vacated the cruiserweight title was because of the pandemic, and now this is just going to muddy up that situation even further. Matt Riddle, apparently WWE was aware of these kind of allegations whenever they signed him a couple years ago, which is kind of crazy, to be honest with you. It's almost like they expected some type of statement from the person who was accusing Matt Riddle. As we saw last week on SmackDown, Matt Riddle's debut went off without a hitch, which was very surreal considering the situation surrounding him. You kind of felt happy for Matt Riddle on TV, but then you see all the stuff, just like, now it feels kind of weird.
I will say that was probably pre-taped before
Yeah.
allegations were really big. So
Oh yeah, absolutely.
that also changes things a little bit.
I think all that with Matt Riddle came out on that Friday morning whenever I woke up, actually. So that would be pretty hard to completely cut out a large portion of the show, quite frankly. And as far as All Elite Wrestling, I believe Jake Hager still with the company. I'm not sure what's going to happen with him going forward. Justin Roberts, I'm not really sure either. But two big moves have been done with All Elite Wrestling. The first is with Jimmy Havoc. AEW released a pretty controversial statement on this. I gotta go to my photos to find it. Sorry.
Yeah, I didn't. I saw the statement. I didn't see as much of the controversy. I don't know. I mean, I wasn't looking for it. I know you follow a lot more wrestling sources than I do.
Yeah.
But since you've definitely talked about it being controversial, so it's somewhat understandable too.
The statement coming from All Elite Wrestling was that we wish Jimmy Havoc all the best as he receives treatment and counseling in an effort to overcome the mental health and substance abuse challenges in his life. We are aware of various reports related to Jimmy. We are evaluating his status with our company and will address it when he has successfully completed his rehabilitation. This got a lot of flack because I think, a lot of people who, who probably just like screw him. He did whatever he did, and you gotta there's like you know why are they kind of taking a side? And the way I saw it was, I don't necessarily think that AEW is taking anyone's side here whatsoever. Whenever it came to Jimmy Havoc, if you read up more about his allegations, his go into a much different direction than what a lot of other people have been accused of. And Jimmy has shown some various signs of self harm, manipulation. He has threatened suicide. So I get a feeling that AEW saw him as a legit threat to do something very dangerous to 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 somebody or himself. So I think they wanted to try to get him treatment as fast as they could. I don't think he's ever going to be back with AEW. I don't think Jimmy Havoc is going to be wrestling in the United States ever again. It is what it is. But yeah, that statement from All Elite Wrestling did receive a lot of controversy.
Yeah, I figured that was probably the controversy. I think a little differently, I think, than a lot of people with this too. I believe in justice for sure. Whatever he did, um, he should have to pay for, be punished in the legit way. I don't believe in revenge, and I know that's a big part of like cancel culture. As soon as somebody does something that they don't like, they should, go to hell, never get a job again, live life as uh, in the worst ways possible. If AEW feels that they need to cut ties with him for whatever reason, that's up for AEW, and if they don't, then they don't. I think if he's having mental trouble, if that is either caused by or the cause of stuff that he's done, it makes more sense to me to try and get help and have another better person on the planet instead of somebody sitting there brooding, having his life ruined. Which, if punishment for what he's done is his life ruined anyways, then just because of jail time or whatever the case may be, then that's what it is.
That's
But
where
again,
the situation becomes a lot muddier.
yeah, I in general would prefer to have people that uh, hopefully truly understand what they did, wouldn't do it again, have learned their lesson, and hopefully can make a difference in society afterwards.
And again, if you guys read up more on the Jimmy Havoc situation, a lot of his situations seem to have stemmed from his alcohol abuse. Because a lot of the stories about him are just like, well, he was really drunk. Like there was another story about him, like another fan trying to who approached him at a bar while he was really drunk, and said, "Hey Jimmy, you had a great match out there," and then Jimmy punched him in the face. So this guy sounds like he might not be the guy that should be drinking alcohol. It might cause some serious problems for him. So another situation that had a little bit of resolution. I would say actually the entire thing has been pretty well resolved. Sammy Guevara was had a interview from a podcast from 2016 that resurfaced, I believe, a couple days ago, if not yesterday. I think it was a couple days ago. And he said a really, really, really bad joke. It's out there if you guys want to find it. I wouldn't recommend it, but that way you know a little bit more context. But he referred to Sasha Banks in a really disgusting, jokingly manner that was not a joke. That's not something you joke about. He apologized for the situation. Sasha Banks released a statement on her Twitter and said the following: "Earlier, I spoke with Sammy. He apologized. We had an open discussion. Words like the comments he made, jokingly or not, have absolutely no place in our society. I don't condone or tolerate this kind of behavior. What one thinks is just a side comment can have a massive impact on someone else's life and can send the wrong message. We have to hold ourselves accountable for our actions and the words we say, and I hope this situation shows them that. I hope from this point on, in order for growth and change within our community to take place, we all can continue to have these conversations. No person, man, woman, or child should ever be subjected to a feeling of fear or any unsafe environment. We all have to do better, not just for ourselves, but for generations to come. Um, and then on the heels of this, AEW indefinitely suspended Sammy Guevara without pay, and his salary is going to be donated to a women's charity, I believe, probably somewhere near Jacksonville where they operate out of. That was an amazing statement from Sasha Banks, a very professional statement, if I could say so myself. Sasha has been, she's had a past of, some fans not thinking that she's treating them right and stuff like that. She's been in the center of some controversy over time, but that was a terrific statement from her.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add to that. It's kind of went the direction I think it should have, where it was between them. Unfortunately, it was made public since it was during a public podcast or whatever that the statements were made. You have to think about what you say and be your best person at all times. When I heard the recording, I kind of one of those things where I'm like, it instantly hit me, a man that's in really bad taste.
Yeah, absolutely.
And roll my eyes. And that happens. It hasn't happened to me for a while, but especially when I was working around more people, it happened enough to where it just kind of rolled my eyes, like, oh my god, I can't believe somebody's saying that. Like,
yeah,
whatever, I guess.
I think the message I sent you on Facebook was something to the point of like, this isn't good. And that's
at least to me, it's really obvious when it comes out. Like, sometimes people skirt the line. I still roll my eyes, but when you use the word rape specifically, that instantly is just like, no.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's a good point to end on this speaking out thing. Again, big shout out to all the people who did speak out. I think it's going to at least hopefully create some change in the wrestling industry for things like this to not ever happen anymore, or at least we're very hopeful for that. And it's a really dark time for wrestling as far as that goes, but maybe it's a big turning point, and things will be way different, because it needs to be, from what it sounds like. So on the heels of that, our next story, I'm going to let you take the reins on this one, because unfortunately I have not listened to the interview. Was this an interview or a podcast?
This okay, so we're talking about Damien Sandow here, and this might at least be partially because he's one of my favorites of all time, which is maybe a personal bias for me, but he's always intrigued me because of what happened to him throughout his WWE career, and how things ended and where he's been up till now. It was kind of mysterious because he hasn't really said anything. He's a nice dude in real life. He's a nice dude. I guess his character wasn't a nice dude, so
no, not necessarily.
No. But when he got released, it was kind of one of those release days where they don't tell people that they're being released. They find out because WWE made an official statement on Twitter, and he was one of the several people released.
That's pretty messed up right there to start with.
Yeah, he's so he was up, all the time after that. I was like, I had a great experience. I've learned so much. I hope to carry this forward. I've no ill will to WWE, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you don't really know what happened. So he did a podcast. I found this because I follow him on Twitter, and he promoted it. The podcast was a mental health podcast, and he was on it, I guess, to tie it in. But the reason why he was on it is because he knew somebody that knows the people that do the podcast. So it was kind of a long ways off, but he's like, sure, let's do the podcast. And to tie it into the podcast was kind of, I guess, long story short, he was doing so well and seeing you know, the results of his hard work, and it just didn't seem to be paying off as he kept being buried by the creative further and further down, and kind of weighed on him because he wasn't somebody to. And I feel the same way a lot of times. He's not somebody to blame everybody for his problems. His he just kept looking. What am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? I guess I'm just not good enough, kind of thing. But do backtrack a little bit here, and feel free to jump in anytime you have comments, John.
Okay.
So yes, Sandows on this podcast, and it wasn't again specifically to give all the details that he'd never given before, but he ended up giving a lot of details. I'd always been wondering, like, did he make enemies? Was he one of the people that was goofing off all the time after Out of the Ring? Kind of like that happened to Drew McIntyre. He was goofing off too much, so they kind of got rid of him.
Well, McIntyre's a comedy character. He should be goofing off.
Was he?
If he's not playing air guitar out in the middle, out at bars and stuff, then he's not living the gimmick, brother.
I suppose that's true. If he was selling that air guitar out in bars, that would actually be pretty cool.
I would be expecting Sandow to be giving intellectual speeches at Hooters.
But at least from his own words, because he went over this himself, he likes working out. He was working out every day. He had a close-knit group of friends, and he was well-liked. He said he didn't know that he had any enemies in creative or just in the locker room, and that's kind of surprising because there's a lot of people that will rub somebody the wrong way at some point. Sandow said he never really had that. He said that he didn't party, and maybe that's a little bit of it, because I know some people get heat in the locker room when they don't go drink with everybody else. He said he generally didn't party much, and that was mostly because you wake up late, you try to get a workout in, you eat, you go to do your work, and then you go eat afterwards, and you're back traveling to the next place, and then you sleep again. And I've always kind of wondered with the people that are known to be partiers, like, how do you fit that in? Because their schedule's already super tight.
Yeah.
So yeah, he said, he wasn't goofing off. He wasn't. He was improving himself constantly. He was a good what they would call a good worker. He would take whatever that was given to him and try to make it work. He said that he felt like his job was to take whatever creative direction they wanted him to go in and make it the best he could.
The old statement, he's a good hand.
Yeah, and a lot of times WWE finds people like that. Like R-Truth does a good job with whatever crazy stuff they have him do. So WWE usually really likes that. And he was doing a good job with it because the crowd was loving it. It slowly built until it was pretty crazy, and then the more that WWE was trying to bury him, the more the crowd wasn't having it. And that's been a true statement for probably the past decade of WWE. Is the fans will find their favorite, and if you try to bury them, they'll like him even more.
It's almost as if there's guys in Damien Sandow kind of fits in this kind of role, that it's almost as if some of these guys will get punished because it's almost as if they accidentally got over and it wasn't planned. Like we've seen this with Zack Ryder, and he got buried beyond oblivion back in 2012. It was so bad. We saw this with Rusev. Rusev was getting over by just saying it's Rusev Day.
Yeah.
And it could be the silliest stuff. Sandow was pretty over as a heel. He was doing a really good job with the intellectual savior of the masses gimmick, but he really took off as Miz's stunt double. Like, he was getting amazing babyface pops just from imitating Miz. And it was, and we'd seen it live, and it was fantastic.
Oh, we saw the birth of it live. He won the titles in St. Louis. He was getting huge pops whenever he rose the title, and then Miz was getting huge boos whenever he rose the title.
Yeah.
And they're on the same team. And I thought that was such an amazing, natural, and unique, original gimmick, having one tag team where half the tag team is face and half the tag team is heel. But yeah, if that's not the way that creative wants it, then we got problems. And that's mostly what I learned from what Sandow said. And again, he still didn't come down hard on WWE. He just kind of told his story as it was, and I'm implying a few things just because that's what makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, for example, he was saying he was getting more and more and more of a following. The people, the higher ups, he said there was a big three, and I know Vince is one of them. I'm not sure exactly who's in the big three.
Not sure.
Maybe
Not sure if it would have been.
Hayes.
I think Michael Hayes might be one of them. Pritchard wasn't around back then. I don't think.
He was saying he got his gimmick, his original gimmick, the intellectual gimmick from Dusty Rhodes.
I
And I
believe
don't
it.
know if Dusty Rhodes was one of the big three at the time, or if he was just a big part back there.
Well, Damien Sandow, I think was originally whenever he first came up. I think it was in 05 and 06, and I can't remember what gimmick they had, but it failed, and he got sent back to developmental or wherever he went to, and then developmental was ran for a while in FCW by Dusty Rhodes. There's a great documentary on the WWE network for it. And I wish they would have gotten Sandow on it, but he's not part of the company, so they didn't. But I get a feeling that if he's saying that Dusty Rhodes helped them come up with that gimmick, I believe it 100% because that gimmick was basically built around Sandow cutting some great promos.
Yeah, and Sandow ran with it so well, especially considering up until his debut, that wasn't really his gimmick. They were just kind of like, here's robes, here's a towel. You're the intellectual savior heel. He goes out there, he holds the mic like he is in the picture, like a chalice, like a wine glass.
It's the little
instantly
things.
got this. He's instantly got this. I'm better than you. In fact, that was his T-shirt for a while. I'm greater than you. Uh, and yeah, he got over as a heel that people enjoyed. Not like they wanted to see him win, but they enjoyed his making, because he would take people out of the audience and basically berate them for being stupid. And yeah, like he said that the big three is what he called them. He said the big three didn't have any plans for him, any specific plans for him. And when he was getting over, it's not necessarily like they were mad they didn't like it, but they wanted certain people to get over. They and I've heard this several different times. They'll latch on to certain people. I guess maybe you could say this with Roman Reigns. It wasn't at the time, but they latch on to a certain person. They're like, this is our person. This is my person. I'm going to make him the best. Everybody's going to love him. And they don't go out there and see, is he doing it? Are people buying this? They go out there and they're like, if people aren't buying this, then we got to try harder.
Yeah.
And if they see this other person that's working, well, that wasn't their plans. This isn't the person that I picked. I don't care about him. And if you're getting too over, like you mentioned, then they can't get their person over because this person's more popular instead. So what do they got to do? They got to bury him to leave that opening for somebody else to step up into.
And then you'll get chanted during somebody else's match, and it's just like, what?
that has happened for Sandow
Yeah.
and CM Punk, among others.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, he got up with his intellectual savior. He got up to a very, I think he got up to a certain point to where you could tell he was more popular than they wanted. So what they do, they teamed him with Cody Rhodes, made Rhodes Scholars tag team, which is a pretty clever tag team. They went together okay. Cody didn't seemed a little out of place, but they made it work, and they actually worked in a decent storyline where, as you see, Sandow's holding the money in the bag, kind of turned on Cody, and he had his chance to build up to cashing in on John Cena, which for so many people leads to having the title, and man, was I ready for that. Well, he cashes in just on a random Monday Night Raw, not at a pay-per-view or anything specific,
No.
and is taken out by Super Cena in a couple seconds. And that would be considered being buried. Not only did he just lose, but he's loses his next like 8-10 consecutive matches until he's not on TV anymore.
And he was on
And
a losing. He was on a losing streak before that too.
yeah, he was actually. That he talked about that too in the podcast. He said he had the Money in the Bank briefcase. He was waiting to cash it in, and he was just losing matches. And he was told by creative that's what happens when you have the Money in the Bank. You don't want to look strong because if you're strong, you didn't need the Money in the Bank in the first place. And I kind of get that.